are reports that you are considering strikes within Venezuela. Is that true?
No.
That you made a decision on that?
No, it's not true.
Donald Trump is literally every day being like, oh, I'm going to hit Venezuela. I'm going to strike Venezuela. I'm going to do CIA covert ops in Venezuela. I love striking Venezuela. It's my favorite thing. I go to sleep thinking about hitting Venezuelan targets. And then one news report comes out from the Wall Street Journal being like, they're actually gearing for war against Venezuela. And they're like, no. Where did you guys get that idea? I don't know. Maybe people got that idea from everything you've said thus far. And also moving a aircraft carrier to the coastline of Venezuela. Perhaps that's the reason why we got that idea, because we've been hearing you say it. Sky News verified satellite imagery that shows the position of USS Iwo Jima, the ship where these live shooting drills were happening. The imagery shows the ship under 200 kilometers away from the coastline of Venezuela. How do we get here? A new guided missile cruiser, the USS Gettysburg, has arrived in the Caribbean, adding to the U.S. military buildup in the region. After this buildup, it would be harder to back off unless something happened. They're going to have to do something unless Maduro steps down or does something dramatic enough that Trump could claim a success, former Pentagon official said to The Hill. The warships are now approximately 124 miles from Venezuela. This was yesterday. The warships are now approximately 124 miles from Venezuela's La Orchila Island, home to one of the country's key air bases and radar facilities. Their approach places them within immediate operational range for amphibious or precision strike missions, according to Newsweek yesterday. Everyone remember how Putin said he won't invade Ukraine? Low key, Donald Trump has said more about invading Venezuela than Putin did about invading Ukraine in the military buildup that took place before the invasion of Ukraine took place. You're right. You're not wrong. That's a perfect comparison. One that I, of course, also was duped by as well, famously. Something that people never let me live down. But it's like Donald Trump is straight up saying like, no, we're going to strike Venezuela. I want to do a land invasion of Venezuela. Is words that have come out of his mouth.
Are you considering strikes on land?
Well, I don't want to tell you exactly, but we are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control.
I don't think it's all that crazy for people to assume that he is going to do that. The anti-war candidate, by the way, 7 peace negotiations I've succeeded in putting together. I've done too much peace for far too long. The world has been too peaceful. We must actually end up doing more war so I can do another peace process. I can do another peace treaty. Yeah, and then Trump's like, I'm going to invade Venezuela. And then everyone's like, dude, you're going to invade Venezuela? He goes, me? Well, huh? Me? Talking about me? Ah, never. Why are there aircraft carriers on the coastline of Venezuela? Why are there so many goddamn naval vessels? Why did you say that you would do covert operations by the CIA, that you sanctioned covert operations on the CIA? At least Russia did the side and Donbass stuff that we aren't even pretending to come up with a reason for this. Yeah, that's the other thing. That's the other thing. Like Russia had in the buildup, there was so much. There were military exercises that happened on the border. Russia had at least like a comprehensive messaging campaign as to why they had to intervene in Ukraine. We're not doing that at all. And even then, it was obviously still bullshit. Make no mistake. There is no justification for invading Ukraine, as I've said time and time again. But we're not even doing that. We didn't even try. We're just like, drugs, I think. They literally came out and were like, drugs or whatever. Who gives a shit? Yeah, we're going to kill a bunch of people. That's unironically what it has looked like so far. Look at all these boats we're blowing up. Isn't that awesome? And everyone's like, I don't know about this, actually. This doesn't seem like a good idea. And they're like, oh, well, Maduro's bad, I think. Come on. Incredible stuff. Yeah, not even the farce of Tonkin. Nope. We used to be a proud nation. We used to, at the very least, try to create like psyops and to get the people on board. Nowadays, democracy is not worth the price of the paper that it's written on, okay? It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're just doing vibes-based global war on terror initiatives now. It's crazy. Yet another glaringly obvious example of the deteriorating conditions, including the deterioration of democracy. You don't even have an investment or an interest in trying to get the people on board, knowing full well that you could just kind of get away with it and people are too busy focusing on the 17,000 different snap benefit rage bait AI videos that they're watching on the timeline or whatever the they're predisposed with. Awesome. Now we also know why Marco Rubio was playing the role of lapdog for the Trump administration because this was his project all along. I mean, he's a major war hawk. He wants to do the failure of the dominoes theory here in the Caribbean, and he seemingly is going to get his wishes. Bolton must be fuming. No, Bolton wanted to do that with Iran. Yeah. Rubio wants to destroy Venezuela. He wants to destroy Cuba. He wants to have a significant foothold in Latin America. He wants to eviscerate the modest growth in the direction of social democracy that has kind of taken place in some South American countries. He's like, nope, can't have that. Time to go back and do a global war on terror style initiative in South America, which, unlike Iraq and unlike the MENA region, is actually connected by continent to the United States of America. There is a direct pathway to the United States of America. So the instability that will be born out of these initiatives will actually have tremendous reverberations that we can absolutely feel. But that, of course, will be another opportunity for the administration to lean greatly into the reactionary sentiment against brown people in ways that you previously thought were unimaginable. Regardless of your own imaginative capacity, I promise you it will be worse. Okay? I promise you it's gonna be worse. Just you wait. When you got mass migration taking place because all of the fertile land has been reduced to rubble and bombed into oblivion, and you got economic refugees that are then going to their neighboring nations and destabilizing said neighboring nations, and then people are migrating from neighboring nations as well as the original nation that has been destroyed by war, and you got tens of millions of people being like, where the do we go? I guess we have to walk by foot to the United States of America. And all that will await them at the border is an increasingly militarized border, concentration camps, drones, AI surveillance technology, and a robust military force, specifically, and Customs and Border Patrol that is ready to start mowing down these waves of migrants that are simply trying to escape the war and instability that we caused in South America. Truly, truly evil stuff.
The president has indicated previously that he would be open to moving his war on drugs from sea to land, but when it comes to a decision to strike within Venezuela, he's not there yet.
There are reports that you are considering strikes within Venezuela. Is that true?
No.
With just one word, President Trump shutting down a report from the Miami Herald that he's decided to strike military sites inside Venezuela at any moment.
That you made a decision on that?
No, it's not true.
Thursday, the Wall Street Journal reported the administration's pinned down targets used to transport drugs, but that the president hasn't made up his mind yet about striking. It comes as disputed Venezuelan President Nicolas.
Yeah, as far as the refugee limitations, reportedly the United States in 2026 is limiting to only accepting 7,500 refugees, and almost all of them are white South Africans, by the way. The white genocide that's taken place in South Africa and the refugees that we will only accept from South Africa. This is the most Twitter administration of all time. So much so that Donald Trump also recently posted about Nigeria and how they're waging war against Christianity in Nigeria. Like, the white genocide and South African narratives were already cooked up by white nationalists under the first Trump administration, and it reached the ears of this current administration, and now they're actually taking the initiative on this like totally made up nonsensical story. And then they're also talking about doing this. I don't know what they're gonna do in Nigeria, but the very fact that they're like geared up and making an issue out of this in a place like Nigeria implies that they are once again hyper focused on whatever narrative gets cooked up on the internet. That's why it's not an accident or weird when you really think about it that JD Vance is over here duking it out with like groypers wearing MAGA hats at the Turning Point USA conference, or talking about, Kaya being abused or something. It's because they are unimaginably online.
Maduro is now turning to Russia and China for help. The Washington Post reports Maduro is, quote, requesting defensive radars, aircraft repairs, and potentially missiles from Vladimir Putin, and expanded military cooperation from Xi Jinping. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has a carrier strike group on its way to the Caribbean as it ramps up attacks on alleged drug boats.
Yeah, it's not Zog, dude. Like the neo-Nazi, anti-Semitic, like Zog, Zionist occupied government is POG. It's podcaster occupied government, okay? It's not Zog, it's POG. And the opportunities for are endless under POG. Podcasts are occupied government.
And Shannon, you'll want to pay attention to next week on Capitol Hill because Republican Senator Rand Paul is apparently joining forces with two Democrats, Adam Schiff and Tim Kaine, to potentially force a vote on a bill, a resolution to stop the president from unilaterally declaring war on Venezuela. Shannon?
Okay, so Aisha, also a federal judge just blocked the president's efforts to tighten up voter registration. It's been an ongoing issue for this president. What do we know about it?
Another alarm bell was the military guy that just like quit, like he resigned. The head of the U.S. military Southern Command is stepping down. Admiral Alvin Halsey is leaving less than a year into his tenure, and as Pentagon escalates attacks against boats in the Caribbean Sea. The military commander overseeing the Pentagon's escalating attacks against boats in the Caribbean Sea that the Trump administration says are smuggling drugs said on Thursday that he was stepping down. The officer, Admiral Alvin Halsey, is leaving his job as the head of the U.S. Southern Command, which oversees all operations in Central and South America, even as the Pentagon has rapidly built up 10,000 forces in the region in what it says is a major counter-drug and counter-terrorism mission. It was unclear why Admiral Halsey is suddenly departing less than a year into what is typically a 3-year job and in the midst of the biggest operation in his 37-year career. But one current and one former U.S. official, both of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss personal matters, said that Admiral Halsey has raised concerns about the mission and the attacks on the alleged drug boats. In a statement on social media, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth made no mention of any friction with his 4-star commander. On behalf of the Department of War, said Mr. Hegseth, using the name of the department he now prefers, we extend our deepest gratitude to Admiral Alvin Halsey for his more than 37 years of distinguished service to our nation as he plans to retire at year's end. Nor did Admiral Halsey publicly voice any policy objections, urging his command's 1,200 military service members and civilians in a statement, keep charging. But the other officials of the Pentagon and on Capitol Hill said the praise masked real policy tensions concerning Venezuela that the admiral and his civilian boss were seeking to paper over. Prior to Trump, I can't think of a combatant commandeer who left his or her post early ever, said Representative Adam Smith of Washington, a senior Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island, the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, was even more poignant in his criticism. At a moment when the U.S. forces are building up across the Caribbean and tensions with Venezuela are at a boiling point, the departure of our top military commander in the region sends an alarming signal of instability within the chain of command. Since early September, U.S. Special Operations Forces have struck at least 5 boats, and since then the number has gone far higher than that. This was in October 17th, I believe, a couple weeks prior to this. And it's not a good sign when you have a career admiral who is overseeing the entirety of your operations resigns after 37 years of service right before you end up going to war, a war that he was supposed to oversee. Not great. Don't think it's great.
So this is a big win today for Democrats and civil rights groups. They sued over the president's executive order, which required voters.
Like in the past, that right there, paired up with like the boat strikes, would be a month-long media cycle, okay? Even like 10 years ago, this would be like, there would be tremendous scrutiny. The media would be going to every single person that has worked with this guy and been like, what the is going on here? They would try to get him to whistleblow. I'm kind of dumb. Why is not good? Can you make it clear, please? Career admirals that have spent 37 years in the military don't just leave while there is tremendous buildup. Like, we're going to war with Venezuela. The guy who's supposed to oversee the Venezuelan war is not just going to leave unceremoniously unless there is some major friction between what he thinks is the appropriate thing to do versus what the administration is demanding of him. Yeah, they also fired the national intelligence guy for the Fent narrative. The Trump admin also fired the director of the National Intelligence Council, who produced the intelligence assessment disproving claims about Maduro being a narco-terrorist, instructed Grinnell to halt all diplomatic talks with Venezuela. They're not even doing a good enough job with this far-reaching narrative, supposedly, where the administration is still have like some level of competence in these positions. So they're just like, what do you mean? This is my job. My job is to tell you what's going on. You didn't give me the prior reasoning for why I must lie in this report, I suspect. This kind of stuff happens all the time. It just happens less frequently. More competent administrations that have these plans mapped out years prior to initiating it. The difference in this administration is that it's haphazardly put together and they don't even see a need to put together a coherent agenda as to why they must bomb Venezuela Venezuela as to why they must actually destabilize Venezuela and invade Venezuela potentially. Famously, though, you don't see military guys quit like that, especially career military guys, right before the most consequential military operation of their career. This is why he was in the military for 37 years, okay? That's the reason why he was in the military, for this exact opportunity, for this exact moment. So clearly what he saw in terms of what this mission looks like was a clear and present danger.